Welcome. I'm Doug Morgan, and you're listening to Uncommon Sense, where we hunt for the truth in the topics you're not supposed to talk about, Christianity and politics. Well, guess what, everyone? It is time for FOMO Friday. Yes, we love to bring you the stories of the week every Friday because we don't want you to have that fear of missing out. You're not listening to propaganda media. You're wanting to know what's going on in the world. And so we love to bring you the stories that you probably should know. Some you may have already heard, some maybe you haven't, but we want you to know what's going on. And so we bring you the FOMO Friday report every single Friday. And from a series of articles from the Daily Wire comes this very first one. We bring back the DOGE report, and the DOGE report we've been kind of keeping track of what the Department of Government Efficiency has been doing, and here's kind of an interesting one here. The Health and Human Services, or HHS, Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. announced Thursday that he's restructuring the department and terminating tens of thousands of employees. You have to hear this. You're not going to believe this. HHS said the moves are being made in accordance with President Donald Trump's executive order, the one implementing the president's Department of Government Efficiency's Workforce Optimization Initiative, and this according to a press release. And here's the quote. You have to hear this. It said, quote, "What I found when I came to HHS," okay, this is Robert F. Kennedy Jr., he says, "What I found when I came to HHS is really a sprawling bureaucracy." Yeah, well, no duh, right? But he says, "We have over 100 communication departments." We're not talking about employees even. I mean, if he said 100 employees that were, communications experts or whatever, that would be just way too many. But he says, we have in HHS, that one department alone, we have 100 communications departments. He says, we should have one. Well, yeah. He says, we have 40 IT departments. We have 40 procurement departments. He says dozens of HR departments, all within the one department, right? All within HHS. This is what Kennedy told the Daily Wire host Michael Knowles. He says, and that is where we're doing the cuts. He says, we're going down from 82,000 personnel to 62,000. And he says, we're keeping the scientists, we're keeping the frontliner providers. He says, we're trying to do our best, not only to serve as stewards of the taxpayer money, but also to make the agency more efficient. Here, you've got to hear this for yourself. Here he is.
You've fired 20,000 bureaucrats. What is this move? It seems like DOGE meets HHS. What does it mean? Why did you do it? How does it serve the MAHA movement?
The agency, this is a $1.9 trillion agency. It's the biggest agency in the government. And during the Biden administration, President Biden increased its budget by 38% and increased the workforce by 17%. And by every metric by which we measure public health accelerated its decline. Putting the money and the personnel in there is not alone going to solve the problem. And what I found when I came to HHS was really a sprawling bureaucracy. We have over 100 communications departments. We should have one. We have 40 IT departments, 40 procurement departments, dozens of HR departments, and there's a lot of administrative ways. What we want to do is make sure, and that is where we're doing the cuts. We're going down from 82,000 personnel to 62,000. We're keeping the scientists, we're keeping the frontline providers. We're trying to do our best to not only serve ourselves as stewards of the taxpayer money, but also to make the agency more efficient. We're cutting it down. Many of these sub-agencies, live in these kind of, they're not talking to each other. They're in these siloed fiefdoms. And I'll give you and they operate often at cross purposes with each other with no sense of a unified sense of mission that we're here to protect public health. They're checking boxes. In many cases, for example, I found that some of these groups collect health data from have these big databases that will be very, very valuable in figuring out what's wrong with our health. But they won't give that data to other parts of the department that could actually, make health better. They sell it to them for, in some cases, very, very extravagant prices in order to support their own little fiefdom rather than public health as a whole. And so we're cutting 20, and there's a lot of redundancy. We're going to eliminate the redundancy. We're going to streamline the agency so that we can inspire all of the workers who work there. And it's an extraordinary group. Most of the people who work there are very conscientious, great public servants that want to do their job, but they're not able to because of perverse incentives and because of these, because there's no overall mission for that agency that everybody wakes up every day and says, my job today is to improve the health of the American public. We're going to recalibrate the trajectory of the agency so that everybody knows we are going to end the chronic disease epidemic in this country. We're going to study all the ingredients in our food. We're going to eliminate the ingredients that are not keeping us safe. We're not eating food today. We're eating food-like substances.
See, that's Kennedy's, Robert F. Kennedy right there talking about just the redundancy. I mean, even right down to where they're not sharing the information with their own department. I mean, they're selling it. Anyway, Kennedy's first round of action will cut around 10,000 positions, which will help save taxpayers about 1.8 billion with a B dollars annually. So that's almost $2 billion every year. Through every retirement program, early retirement programs, and of course, the Fork in the Road initiative, the department seeks to eventually downsize to that 62,000 number. Well, we're going to streamline our agency and eliminate the redundancies and invite everyone to align behind simple, bold mission. I mean, you heard him say that. He says, we're going to save taxpayers nearly $2 billion a year, and we're going to return HHS to its original commitment to public health and the gold standard science. He says, I want everyone who works here to be proud of this agency, to be proud of the work, and to feel a renewed inspiration. That's good, right? I mean, that's awesome. That's a great direction to go. Obviously, a great deal of redundancy in there. And it's good to see him hit the ground running. All right, well, moving on, we have some good news here in kind of a bad situation. The federal law enforcement officials arrested 36-year-old Paul Han Kim. And he's a resident of Las Vegas, and they arrested him this week on charges stemming from an attack on a Tesla shop. You've heard about these attacks on people that own Tesla cars and they're keying the car. They're just doing all kinds of stuff. And of course they're going after Tesla dealerships and throwing Molotov cocktails. There's been 3 arrests we talked about last week, and here's another one. Kim, who was arraigned in federal court on Thursday, was charged with 1 count of unlawful possession of an unregistered firearm and 1 count of arson. This is what the DOJ said in a statement. He remains in federal custody. Quote, the Department of Justice has been clear. Anyone who participates in a wave of domestic terrorism targeting Tesla properties will suffer severe legal consequences. This is what Attorney General Pam Bondi said. And she said that we will continue to find, arrest, and prosecute these attackers until the lesson is learned. Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department patrol officers responded to a call last Tuesday about gunshots and a person setting vehicles on fire. Investigators discovered that Molotov cocktails and a 30 caliber AR style firearm were used to damage and destroy 5 Tesla vehicles. Oh no, right? I mean, seriously, what do these guys think they're going to accomplish here? I mean, they They destroyed 5 vehicles, right? Anyway, spray paint, it's not logical, okay? It's not logical. It's not. Spray paint was also used to vandalize the building with graffiti that said resist, which of course is a common rallying cry for the far left. But police executed a search warrant on Wednesday at Kim's home, where they discovered a firearm consistent with the one used in the attack, a black gun belt with a pouch and a small drop of pink paint residue, a black hoodie, face masks, and a handwritten note. Get this, a handwritten note with the with what appeared to be an escape plan. See, these guys just are not all that bright. Okay, they're just not the brightest bulb in the whole box. But if convicted, Kim faces up to 10 years in prison for the firearm charge and 20 years in prison for the arson charge. So he could be in prison for up to 30 years here. Here's a quote: "As promised, acts of violence and vandalism will not be tolerated, and today, law enforcement personnel acted quickly to arrest an individual on charges including arson." This is Kash Patel, the FBI director. He said, "Under Attorney General Bondi's leadership, we will continue to pursue these investigations with the full force of law and will bring to justice anyone responsible for these attacks." So, I mean, that's good. I mean, there's a lot of this going on right now, and it does need to come to an end. And the left can be very violent. I mean, the mega right is doing this, or it's the left that tends to be very violent in what they do. And here's another example: a man convicted over the brutal beating of 2 elderly pro-life sidewalk counselors outside of a Baltimore Planned Parenthood will be retried after a jury could not come to a verdict on a first-degree felony assault charge last month. Now, Patrick Bryce, he's 28, will be retried. That's good, right? Retried by state prosecutors over the 2023 beating of Mark Crosby and Richard Schaefer outside of Planned Parenthood that left them both bloodied. At the time of the attack, Crosby was 84 years old and Schaefer was 73. Yeah, this 28-year-old is beating them up. Bryce was convicted last month on 4 lesser accounts related to the attack by dodging the more serious. He did dodge the more serious first-degree assault charge due to a hung jury, though. I mean, anyway. At least he's getting retried, right? Bryce was convicted on 2 counts of second-degree assault and 2 counts of reckless endangerment and was set to be sentenced on March 20th before the decision to retry the first-degree assault charge. Baltimore State Attorney Ivan Bates told the Baltimore Banner that his office is supporting victims and witnesses of crimes and ensuring justice is served in Baltimore. That's good. While we understand the victims' frustrations, we have made every effort to ensure they fully understand the process and have access to the necessary support, Bates said. As this is an open and ongoing matter, we will continue to provide this support throughout the case resolution process. So, yeah, I mean, this is all very good. It's at least, I mean, the hung jury part of it is not, but at least they're retrying here, and they're not just making it go away. Footage shows Bryce tackling Schaefer into a large potted plant after a heated exchange. Crosby then runs over to help Schaefer before he is forced to the ground. And the video then shows Bryce punching Crosby in the face and kicking him in the head. Quote, "I call it attempted murder if you watch the video. He actually is straddling me," he says, "and he hits me double-fisted." This is what Crosby said. Crosby himself was hospitalized after the attack and treated for a fractured bone in his face, blindness in one eye, and head and neck pain, 2 fractured fingers, and bruising on his arms and legs. And yet this was a hung jury. Okay. Crosby believed that one of the reasons for the attack was that he and Schaefer had been effective in convincing women to turn to a nearby crisis pregnancy center. And he previously told the Daily Wire that both men had frequently returned to Planned Parenthood after the attack. So, yeah, we'll keep our eye on that, and we'll see, what comes of it. But a little bit of a disturbing thing here. The Second Amendment is really, really clear when it comes to our Constitution, and it is basically it says that we cannot put any restrictions on guns and gun ownership. Of course, there have been some encroaching type of things, and one of the things that we saw here under the last administration, the Biden administration, was they went after ghost guns. Now, on Wednesday, in a 7-2 decision, the Supreme Court upheld federal restrictions aimed at ghost guns. So in April of 2022, the Biden administration announced that its DOJ had issued a final rule to rein in the proliferation of ghost guns. Right? This final rule bans the business of manufacturing the most accessible ghost guns, such as unserialized buy, build, shoot kits that individuals can buy online or at a store without a background check, and can readily assemble into a working firearm in as little as 30 minutes with equipment they have at home. This is what the Biden White House noted. The final rule will also help turn some ghost guns already in circulation into serialized firearms. Well, in 2022, the Bureau of Alcohol and Tobacco and Firearms and Explosive, the ATF, adopted a rule interpreting the act, Gun Control Act of 12/9/68, to cover weapon parts kits that are designed to or may readily be converted to expel a projectile, and particularly complete, dismantle, or non-functional frames or receivers. That the Supreme Court noted this on Wednesday, that gun manufacturers and others, of course, filed a facial challenge. It's a court challenge, contending that the Gun Control Act of 1968 could not be read to read weapon parts kits or unfinished frames or receivers. But the Supreme Court held that the ATF's rule is not facially inconsistent with the GCA, that deal from 1968. Quote, recent years, however, have witnessed profound changes in how guns are made and sold. This is what the majority opinion read. It says, when Congress adopted the GCA in 1968, the milling equipment, materials needed, and designs were far too expensive for individuals to make firearms, particularly and reliably on their own. With the introduction of the new technologies like 3D printing and reinforced polymers, that is no longer true. Okay, that's what the majority wrote. Okay, now Justice Clarence Thomas, who dissented along with Justice Samuel Alito, both, of course, those two are just the rock stars of the Supreme Court. But anyway, they contended, quote, the government asked this court just last term to rewrite statutory text so that it could regulate semi-automatic weapons as machine guns. We declined to do so. The government now asks us to rewrite statutory text so that it can regulate weapon parts kits. This time, the court obliges. I would not. The statutory terms, frame and receiver, do not cover the unfinished frames and receivers contained in weapon parts kits. The weapon part kits themselves do not meet the statutory definition of firearm. That should end the case. The majority instead blesses the government's overreach based on a series of errors, both regarding the standard of review and the interpretation of the statute. I respectfully dissent. So, yeah, that is unfortunate. We have a Supreme Court that It does have a lot more people on it that are more constitutionally minded, but in this case, I think they got it wrong. And what we see, one of the reasons why we have the Second Amendment is because government will just continue to overreach and overreach. That is just what they do. And they'll say, "Well, no, we're just trying to get rid of mass murderers, and all this kind of stuff." But they're going about it always the wrong way. And I'll give you an example here. In the British Prime Minister, because in Britain they have very, very strict gun laws where you can't basically own a gun, right? British Prime Minister Starmer, his latest promised effort to combat violent crime has so far only resulted in him taking a virtual beating on social media. Really, I mean, this is where they go. Okay, now Starmer announced via X that he was going to make good on his promise to ban, get this, ninja swords. yeah, ninja swords, and critics were far from impressed. Quote, "Knife crime is an epidemic level." This is what Starmer. Okay, this is what Starmer is. He posted this January of last year. Knife crime is at epidemic levels and is ruining lives across Britain. As Prime Minister, I'll crack down on sales of these lethal weapons once and for all. when I announce a ban, you'll get a ban. Well, yeah, it's just crazy. Because here's an example of they've taken away gun ownership. Okay, so hey, they should be doing really well now, right? There's no guns, those no evil guns anymore, right? Well, but now what are they cracking down on? Those ninja swords, those the problems they're having with ninja swords. In fact, like I say, he's getting a lot of flack though from this. Quote, at last, Britain's nagging ninja problem has been solved, David Birch posted. Yeah, but I like this. Chris Lowe, she says, "This is beyond stupid. Will you ban cricket bats, sharp sticks, and sharpened hunks of metal? You need to lock up the criminals and allow the decent folk to arm themselves against such attackers." Yeah, exactly. Again, they're talking about knives here. We're talking about, the Second Amendment and the right to bear arms. Musician Zuby went straight to the heart of the matter, saying, and I like this, it says, "Maybe one day they will address fatherless homes, masculinity crisis, loss of faith, soft on crime policies, unchecked mass immigration, abandoned communities, and other prominent stuff. But until then, ... He also said this is the UK version of the way the US skirts around gun violence issue. Always targeting the individual tools, yes, the individual tools, instead of having a serious conversation about this state of the society and why there are so many lost, violent young men. Those conversations could offend people," he added. And it's true. It's true. That's what it gets right down to, right? The left's response to gun violence is always like, responding to auto accidents by taking away everybody's cars, right? I mean, it's just you're not going after the problem of the issue. You're going after these their tools that they're using, and that's just not going to work. It's just not going to work. It's not going to keep people safe. And speaking of staying safe, the Trump administration is investigating Portland, Oregon's public school district over a trans-identifying male athlete who was allowed to compete on the girls' team. The Education Department's Office of Civil Rights announced on Tuesday that it has opened an investigation into Portland Public Schools over allegations the district violated Title IX, which is the federal civil rights law that prohibits sex discrimination in public schools. Quote, "These allegations include allowing a male track athlete to compete in a girls' interscholastic track and field competition on March 9th of this year, and permitting the male athlete to use the girls' locker room while female athletes were changing. This is what the administration said. We covered a little bit about this. I think it was last week, if I remember right. Now, last week, a trans-identifying male athlete at Leotis and McDaniel High School in Portland took the first place trophy for 2 races, and the girls' 200-meter race by 1.5 seconds, and the girls' 400-meter race by about 10 seconds, setting season records, of course. Last year, the same biological male athlete also won the girls' 200-meter race at the 6A1 Portland Interscholastic League Championship. The Office of Civil Rights notified Kimberly Armstrong, superintendent of the Portland Public School System, of the Title IX investigation in a letter. And the administration also notified the Oregon School Activities Association, or OSAA, which governs student sports, that it is investigating its gender identity participation policy, which appears to violate Title IX. Yes, of course it does. But this is kind of interesting here. The gender identity participation policy allows students to participate in the athletic or activity program of their consistently altered gender identity while providing a fair and safe environment for all students. That's what they say. So, and I love what they say here. It says that the Portland Public Schools superintendent said that the district's commitment to doing what is right for all students, especially those vulnerable, remains unwavering. Okay, they are not in the business of keeping everybody safe and doing what's right for all students. The all student part is definitely the wrong choice of words here. They are only interested in their agenda, and this only proves that. Hey, let's end today on like I told you before. I've gotten some feedback that people want to hear a little more about the celebrities and things like this. Again, I'm not really a celebrity guy, but I'm trying my best here. Okay, and I found this story, which is really interesting because you probably heard about some of the fallout from the new Disney movie Snow White, and how it's an abject failure. It is just tanking, and there's some good reason, but I thought this was a really good opinion piece on the fallout from Rachel Zegler, who plays Snow White here, and they say that Christian Bale pulled a Rachel Zegler before anyone knew the young actress's name. Everyone recalled Bale's work from the Dark Knight trilogy. So when director Ridley Scott cast him in 2024's Exodus: Gods and Kings, it mattered. Who wouldn't want the Oscar winner in their next project? When Bale dubbed Moses as a terrorist, Moses, yes, as a terrorist in public interviews for the film, it didn't go so well. If here's a quote: "If you're not religious, you can look at it as one man's freedom fighter is another man's terrorist," he said about Moses. So religious audiences, of course, otherwise curious to see a movie featuring Moses, weren't amused. And the film, despite the talent of Scott and Bale, it tanked. Sound familiar though, right? By now, everyone knows how Zegler helped crush Disney's Snow White at the box office. She alone did a ton, but she's not alone, though. Stars routinely damage their own projects with ill-advised comments. That mostly involves stars getting hyper-political on publicity tours and things like that, stoking partisan rage and whatnot. Many moviegoers refuse to see movies made by, two-time Oscar winner Sean Penn, for example, due to, of course, just decades of charged comments. And look at Robert De Niro. He spent nearly a decade savaging President Donald Trump from every available platform. And his latest film, The Alto Nights, opened to just a disastrous $3.1 million, despite his gravitas in gangster movies and tackling not one but two mobster roles in this film. Was it something he said? Well, it can't be ruled out, right? I mean, the Zegler fallout, though, is different. And it could be the final warning for stars who heed when they talk to press moving forwards. Anger potential fans at your peril. Snow White's slow-moving car crash began about 2 years ago when Zegler trashed the iconic source material on the red carpet. And this is what she said. She says, "I just mean that it's no longer 1937. We absolutely wrote a Snow White that she's not going to be saved by the prince. And she's not going to be dreaming about true love. She's going to be dreaming about becoming the leader she knows she can be, and that her late father told her that she could be if she was fearless, fair, brave, and true," unquote. So then they wonder why it bombed, right? A separate interview found her mocking the story's male hero, said the prince who saved Snow White with a kiss, weird. She this is what she infamously called him, reframing his affection as stalker. So the prince was a weird stalker for wanting to find Snow White. It's really not about the love story at all, which is really, really wonderful, is what she said. Yeah, this is the type of thing that gets these guys in trouble, and they just never learn, right? I mean, she went on to attack her co-host, and doing the whole free Palestine thing and whatnot. But I have to say that they just don't seem to learn, and Disney isn't learning. If you look back over their last number of movies, they're all tanking, and they're not even making back the money that they're spending, and they're spending a lot of money. I mean, they are spending a lot of money. Snow White was close between a quarter and a third of $1 billion. So yeah, millions and millions of dollars, and they're just not learning their lesson. But we'll keep an eye on it for you. Okay. I'd love to hear from you on it, though. Maybe you've seen the movie. I'd love to hear from you. You can always do that at uncommonsensepodcast.com. We're on YouTube as well. And thank you for listening. This podcast is a production of Morganite Communications.